we have faced them because before Morpho Blue, that we call Morpho V1, we were working on top of existing landing pools such as Compound and Aave, and we've been working on top of them for almost 2 years. um, we realized that one, those landing pools were very nice in top of UX for end users, but not for protocols working on top of it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shane Barratt, research partner at Hack VC, and I'm joined today by Merlin, who's one of the co-founders of Morpho.
Right. Thank you for the invite, and hi everyone. Super cool to be here.
Yeah. So what is Morpho?
Right. So Morpho is a immutable landing protocol. It's a landing primitive with on which you can create many isolated markets. There's this smart contract has just 600 lines of code and hold almost like 6.5 billions of total deposits across different chains. And I guess I'm here to explain how it works and what's different from other landing pools that are existing in the space. So yeah, I guess let's start.
Yeah. Can you start with explaining how existing lending pools work, and then how Morpho is different?
Yeah, sure. So I do a little drawing for that. So for current landing pool in general, let me up. It's like, so you have a big pool on which anyone can deposit assets. So you can have, you can deposit DAI, you can deposit, for instance, USDC. You can also deposit Pepe. The nice thing with landing pools is that the UX is super nice. You have everything at the same place. It's one click deposit, one click withdraw. You can also earn interest on your collateral, so you can think that it's more efficient in terms of capital. The problem is if you deposit USDC, as I wrote in the on the drawing, you're also exposed to Pepe that can leverage Pepe on other assets. And so you're also exposed to Pepe. And if something bad happens on the Pepe asset, then you might face some bad debt, or I don't know, the liquidity pool can be completely drained in total. So that's one of the problem that Morpho is solving. I come back I come back on that later on. Also, one thing of that we see on current lending pool is usually you have the DAO that is doing risk management. So here it's the DAO that decides on which risk parameters to use, which assets to list, etc. So you have in somehow the wisdom of the crowd, right? The problem is if you need to make fast decisions, or you want to add new assets. The problem is, first, each time you add a new asset, you increase the overall risk exposure of that pool. So you will increase the risk of all users on that pool. And the second thing is that the process is super slow. And also, because it's one landing pool, you have only one risk profile. So this is a problem, because I mean, maybe on my side, I'm a super degen and I want to leverage Pepe as much as possible. The problem is that the current risk parameters that the DAO has chosen or have been made for super safe, like borrowing and lending with Pepe.
Yeah, and what do you mean by
The,
risk profile? Is that like the interest rates for lending and borrowing and
right.
collateralization factors and stuff like that?
So it's more on the collateralization factor where, for instance, if there's so loan to value, for instance, of 80%, let's say, on the market, what does it mean is, so LTV equal 80%. That means with $100, I can borrow up to 80 dollars, right?
Mhm.
So that's what means LTV of 80%. If the higher the LTV, the more I can borrow for the same collateral. So you have the intuition that if you can borrow more against the same amount of collateral, then you're kind of increasing the risk of the underlying protocol, right? So let's say, like, coming back to the current lending pool, if I'm a degen, but the LTV is like 30%, let's say, maybe I'm not super happy because I would have preferred 50, 70, 80%. But the opposite can be true as well. If I'm someone that is seeking super safe strategy and just earning USDC yield, maybe 2 or 3%, and I'm fine with that yield, maybe I don't want to be exposed to someone that could bring the rate of USDC to 7-8%, but at the same time increase my risk a lot higher. So this is another problem of current lending pools. All those problems, we have faced them because before Morpho Blue, that we call Morpho V1, we were working on top of existing lending pools such as Compound and Aave, and we've been working on top of them for almost 2 years. We realized that, one, those landing pools were very nice in terms of UX for end users, but not for protocols working on top of it, because you were exposed to a lot of assets. There was also a lot of codes and edge cases, like multiple thousands of lines of codes, and also there was that upgradability that I haven't mentioned before. But the fact that those smart contracts are upgradable makes tricky the building on top of it, because at any time they could change the behavior of the underlying protocol, the behavior plus also the interface of the smart contract, which already happened when a protocol upgraded. It broke the interface, which broke all the integration on top, and we're locking the funds. So it's quite dangerous to build on top of upgradable smart contract.
So that's
This
another
is
feature
why,
of Morpho, that it's non-upgradable.
yeah, it's fully immutable and governance minimized. And I come back on this, but once you create a market, everything is set in stone. So there's no, you have a guarantee that the same behavior and the same logic will apply forever, and as long as your integration lasts. So to last to so here, maybe I can write all those problems. So you have one size fits all risk profile. Sorry. Upgradable.
Gradable.
Um,
And then the DAO upgrading.
Risk management.
Yeah. So a lot of the inspiration for Morpho came from these like fundamental issues with existing lending protocols.
Exactly. And complex code base, which I think is a very important topic.
Yeah. And just the smart contract, not even all the backend stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm not writing super well, but I'm not sure I can do better.
That's okay.
So this is why we created what we called Morpho Blue. And that we called now Morpho V1 up. So Morpho V1 is so you have a landing primitive, which is the Morpho core smart contract. So on that primitive, it's very simple. It's only 600 lines of code. So it's doing one thing, but super well, which is creating market and doing the accounting management of the interests that are being earned by lenders and paid by borrowers. That's basically it. And
And is it end
the
to end
whole
or one to one for assets?
what do you mean by this
Meaning, is it
question,
just
sir?
supply one, borrow one asset? Um,
Yeah. So
or
so on that primitive, you can create a market. One market has 5 parameters. So you have the collateral, you
yeah,
have
maybe
the
you could
loan
write
asset.
those as well.
Yeah, I will do it. So, oh shit. I'm writing super. It's terrible. So you have on a market one collateral
Which is just like a token address, basically.
asset. Yes, it's an address. You have one loan asset. So basically, the asset that you can borrow against your collateral. You have the interest rate model, which is again another address. You have what we call the LLTV, which is basically the loan to value that I mentioned before, which determines like how much you can borrow against your collateral. So it's between 0 to 100%. And you have the oracle that allows you to price the collateral in terms of the loan asset, and which allows to compute what's the what's the health factor of a given position and whether that position can be liquidated. We can discuss that a bit later on. So on Morpho, what you can do is anyone, and it's permissionless, can create markets. So you can create as many markets as you want, and all those markets are isolated. What does it mean? Is that if something bad happens on one market, it does not affect other markets. This is super important if you want to build an integration and remember the different risk profile I was talking about a bit earlier. Let's say I'm very risk averse. I only want to be exposed to blue chip assets. Then on top of Morpho, you can select the markets to which you want exposure to, and select and select only them. So let's take an example on Morpho. Let's up. Let's say this is the primitive. You can create a market here, and it can be wrap st if as collateral against USDC. You can create another market. Let's say WBTC USDC. And here you could create again Pepe Pepe USDC.
So to be super clear here, if you have a market that looks like wrap Bitcoin USDC. Um, Basically, when you're lending out to that market, you provide USDC, right? And when you want to
Yeah,
go
exactly.
borrow, you provide wrap Bitcoin and then you get the USDC that people have lent out. Is that correct?
Yeah, so here the first asset that I'm listing is the collateral, and the second one is the loan asset. So I can put that here, collat,
Like
and
basically, if you're a
loan.
lender, you're going to give the loan asset. And if you're a borrower, you're going to provide the collateral and receive the loan asset.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So okay, you have all those markets that can be created permissionlessly by anyone on the planet and create as many markets, and this is fine. I mean, you can create Pepe, you can list any, even a rug pool token. You could create a market today, and if something bad happened on that market, it does not affect others. Um, and this is we have a Coinbase integration for Bohr product, for instance, and what they've chosen is one single market, which is the CBBTC USDC market. So people can deposit Bitcoin as collateral and borrow USDC. And the cool thing about it is that whatever happened on other markets, the Coinbase users won't be affected by it. So you have all those markets, but as a lender, it seems a bit difficult to choose on which market you want to deposit assets, right? Because there can be hundreds of markets, and as a lender, usually I just want a very seamless experience. I just want to deposit and forget and earn the yield, and somehow maybe later on withdraw and get my yield.
Well, and
So
as a borrower, same thing, right?
for the board, it's true, but a bit less true, because usually you know the collateral that you're going to use, and there's not so many duplicate markets. Why for a given loan asset you can face like multiple collaterals, which can be a bit annoying.
Yeah.
For you.
Like often the loan asset is USDC. So
Um,
there or most of the times there's a lot more choices for where to lend it out.
yeah, USDC is
Or
yeah,
other stable coins basically is often the
top one asset that is being borrowed. That's for sure. Okay, so you understand that it might be a bit complicated to manage your position as a lender, especially in terms of market conditions, and
you don't want to
also
interact with 10 different smart contracts on
yeah,
Ethereum
exactly.
just to lend out one thing. Yeah.
And you have realized that here we haven't talked about risk management at all. And why? This is because Morpho, instead of enshrining the risk management at the smart contract and protocol level, it's externalized to a layer on top. And this layer on top is our Morpho vaults. So we could create a sort of layer here. And here, in fact, anyone can create a vault, which we called Morpho vault. There's a factory, and let's draw several vaults. So vault A, vault B, vault Z. So those vaults are operated by what we call curator. A curator is some sort of a risk manager that will create a specific vault, and what users will do. So let's say we have some user, they will deposit their liquidity into those vaults, and then those vaults will decide on which market to deposit those funds. And they will decide on which market and how to reallocate the liquidity depending on market conditions. So let's say there's a better rates on one market, or there's a new asset that could be interesting to add to the strategy. Creators will take care of it. and we'll do the risk management for them. So and also curator can create markets, so it can be super efficient in the way that it's not gate kept by the DAO. There's no need for vote to create a new market or whatever. So it can be much faster. But at the same time, you can have different vote that target different risk profile. So for instance, Vault A can decide only to deposit into the first market, right? The Vault B can deposit into the first market, the second market, and perhaps other market as well. And the last vault maybe is super diligent vault and only deposit liquidity to Pepe USDC market. So here you have the idea that each vault can represent one specific risk profile. So if I'm a degen, I use the vault Z. If I'm like super risk averse user, I deposit into vault A or B. This is something that you can't have with current landing pool design. And because you have permissionless market at the primitive layer, you can also have reward asset at the same in the same smart contract. You can have reward asset. You can have pretty much everything that you can think of as collateral or stablecoin. Or loan asset.
It kind of also decouples the lending from the borrowing in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also here vaults reaggregate somehow the liquidity for lenders. So if you, for instance, if you deposit liquidity into market B directly and there's not enough liquidity, then you might be stuck as a user. While if you go through the vault B, maybe there's liquidity into that first market, right? So if you're on the vault B, you could still borrow that withdraw that liquidity. So you're still liquid. So going to the vault allows you to be much more liquid than going to at the market level directly.
Okay, and the reason for that would be, you can't pull it out because there's too much borrowed. It's already at the capacity.
Yeah. But it,
Okay.
it would be the same as classic lending pool. If someone borrows all the liquidity, then users are stuck. But usually you have the interest rate model that will make the rate to spike so that if there's a borrower borrowing all that liquidity, then the cost of borrowing increases as well. So you have an incentive either for the borrower to repay the loan or for other lenders to come because it's now the rate is super juicy, so you want to deposit to earn that additional yield.
And the reason the vault can get away with that is because they can pull USDC or loan asset from different markets.
It's more that at the vault level you pulled with other users. Vault or there can be like thousands of users onto that vault, so you benefit from that liquidity, and then the liquidity is deposited into market. As you can see in my drawing, you can have multiple vaults deposit into the same market, so it benefits from the network effect of it benefits from the network effect.
And presumably, so the vault operators have to be pretty sophisticated actors because they need to decide how like a lot of assets are distributed across the markets. And because there's basically a borrower demand coming in, and they want to basically supply the assets to where there's the most demand.
Yeah, exactly. So curator are usually risk managers. We have stakeouts, gauntlets, chaos labs, or risk managers that have worked with other like large entities like Lido, a maker. So they pretty much they really know about the risk in general, but also about smart contract protocol behaviors, etc. So this is them doing the curation on which markets to list in the vault and how to reallocate the liquidity. By the way, I haven't mentioned that, but maybe we can discuss about the different rules of the vault and what makes those vaults quite special. Because even though it's vault that are managed by curators, they are still non-custodial. That means that users can always withdraw the liquidity if they don't agree about the decisions of the curator. So vaults or have like different roles. So vaults are non-custodial, and there's 4 different roles. So there's the owner that basically own the vault, can take a fee, and can do pretty much everything, as like has access to all admin functions. There's also the curator. So the curator, he is able to submit the addition of a new market. Um, so this is one of the most important role, because he's able to say, okay, now I want to add that market to the vault. Every actions that are basically increasing the risk of the user uh, is under a time lock. So what does it mean to increase the risk of a user? Adding a market is adding risk. Um, Reducing the time lock is also adding risk to the user. Increasing the cap, because there's cap to like cap the exposure of the vault to a specific market, so that, for instance, you can say, hey, I don't want to have more than 10 million of USDC on that specific market. So basically the curator is putting some constraints that the vault cannot reach, and that are this is to prevent and to protect the users. There's also the allocator. The allocator is a more lightweight role that can be set by the curator, and the allocator is within those constraints that have been defined by the curator. The allocator will be able to reallocate the liquidity, for instance, from this market to the second market. And it will take into account maybe the market conditions, and it can be totally automated with like some strategies, taking the rates of the competition or whatever. So you can have like a fully automated solution for the allocator. And obviously the allocator cannot go beyond the cap that have been put in place by the creator, or deposit liquidity into market that haven't been whitelisted into the vault before.
And then also time lock constraints and all that stuff.
Not really. The time lock only applies to creator thing, because right.
So they could move
has,
instantaneously the assets
yeah,
between
the moving is instantaneous, but if you want to add a new market, you need to wait for the time lock to end.
Okay.
And there is a fourth role, which is the guardian. And the guardian is here to protect the users. So it's kind of the voice of the crowd, the voice of the depositors. So let's say the creator wants to add a rug pull market. Then the guardian, what he can do is revoke the submissions. And the revoking can happen during the time lock. So let's say the time lock is 7 days. The creator submit, hey, I want to add that new market. The guardian is not happy with that. Then the guardian can revoke that action.
So that's like they have veto power, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what make the vault totally non-custodial, and because it's immutable, that can protect users from having their funds locked.
And are often the owner, curator, allocator like the same entity, and then the guardian is a different entity, or how does that normally work?
So usually, yeah, owner, curator, allocator are usually the same. That's true. But sometimes you have owner that is For instance, a good example is Moonwell. Moonwell is a DAO. They use a compound fork before, and now they shifted to the Morpho stack because it's more lightweight, more secure, etc. The owner is Moonwell. For instance, I can write that here. But the creator and the allocator is it's Block Analytica. And so those are risk managers, and they do the risk management, and they are paid by the DAO to risk manage the vault. And and the creator has like some constraints on which market they can list into the vault. And also Moonwell is the guardian, so that everything, if the creator does something that the DAO does not want, then they can revoke those actions. So they can some sort of prevent any rogue action from the creator.
So it's like pretty composable because the owner is just a DAO address or the
Yeah, exactly.
comptroller or
You
whatever.
You could even set the owner as some sort of address that forward calls to the vault, and you could even be more granular on which action the owner can do. So at the vault level, the owner can do everything that the curator and the allocator can do, but if you want to, for compliance reasons, you don't want to access risk management functions, for instance, then you could create a smart contract that is the owner, and that cannot forward calls to those risk management functions, and thus disabling the risk management from the owner. But the curator and the allocator would still be able to do it. So it's quite I mean, it's quite flexible, right? Anyway, so that's for the vault parts. One thing that you have noticed is because markets are isolated, we are basically fragmenting the liquidity. So on one side, it's great because you're isolated the risk and you're not exposed to everything. But at the same time, that means that the same, let's say 100 millions of USDC that would have been deposited into a classic lending pool would have been accessible to everyone. Here, it's only accessible to maybe one or two markets, or it's split across multiple markets, which makes like on those markets maybe there's only 10 million or 10 million or less USDC available to be borrowed. So what we've created is a smart contract that is called the public allocator. So the public allocator is a smart contract that can be set as allocator. So the creator can set this smart contract is an allocator of my vault. And on this public allocator, what you can say is anyone, so a user, for instance, could create the public allocator and reallocate funds from one market to another. And I can decide on flow caps. So the maximum that can go to that market or go out of that market. So you have like flow in.
And what's the motivation behind this?
The motivation is reaggregating the liquidity for borrowers. So let's say I'm a borrower and I want to borrow on that market.
Yeah.
There's not enough liquidity. But maybe on the second market, WBTC USDC, there's enough liquidity to satisfy my borrow. Here you can see that Vault B is depositing liquidity into the first market and the second market, right? So maybe the Vault B could reallocate liquidity to the first market in which I want to borrow, but there's not enough liquidity. So the Vault B would reallocate the available liquidity from the second market to the first one, so that and enable the possibility for me to borrow. Of course, it's in that there's multiple steps into that. So what we've done is you have the public allocator, and the borrower can trigger the public allocator to reallocate the liquidity on that vault, and allows me to borrow on market A.
And you either have
Maybe
your own allocator or the public allocator, or can you have both working at the same time?
so you can have at the vault level, you mean?
Yeah.
At the vault level, you can have multiple allocators.
Oh, okay.
So you could have the public allocator, but you could also have here a bot.
So it's
the
like a
bot
bot
would,
that's running, but then like someone comes
yeah,
in is like, I really want to borrow from this pool, and then you
exactly.
say, okay, sure, I'm gonna
So the bot
match that.
maybe would monitor the markets and, oh, the rate is super good on that market. Let's reallocate a bit more liquidity to increase the yield for my lenders. So that would be like instant and continuous management. And whenever there's a borrower that comes and wants additional liquidity, because it is a large borrower, then the borrower can trigger the public allocator to reallocate the liquidity and borrow. As I said, there are multiple steps, especially also for just a single borrower. What you need to do is first approve the collateral asset, supply collateral, borrow the asset. If you add the public allocator step, you need to approve, trigger the public allocator to reallocate the liquidity, supply collateral, and borrow. That's multiple steps. What we have built is the bundler smart contract. So the bundler is, well, it's in the name. It's a smart contract that allows the users, EOAs or even smart wallets, to bundle different actions into one single transactions. So it's
It's like Uniswap
again,
multi-call kind of
exactly,
similar.
exactly. So what it allows on Morpho, for instance, is to batch. Oh, you have ETH. You can batch ETH to wrappest ETH, supply collateral, reallocate liquidity, borrow USDC, and everything is just one step. What
Yeah.
you need is just, yeah.
Well, quick question. How does the public allocator choose which vault? Because like there might be, 50 vaults subscribed to it. Or is it the
Yeah,
user who
exactly.
chooses?
So that's more off-chain. So there's multiple ways. Either you are an integrator on top of Morpho, you want to do your own secret source, and you monitor what's happening on chain, the configuration of the public allocator by the different curators and vault managers. So you can do that. On our side, we have also built an API that serves you. Let's say you on the API you can say, hey, I want 50 mil on that market. How can I source that liquidity? And the API will return, hey, you can trigger that reallocation and just pass this on chain. So we have an off-chain API, but you can also do it just by looking at the smart contract
Yourself.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the bundle smart contract, so I don't know where I could put it, but let's.
It improves the UX, basically, the whole system.
Yeah, the bundle smart contract will drastically increase the UX, and here you can see here. So you have the bundler, you have the borrower, for instance, that if you go to the interface, the Morpho interface, for instance, you are interacting with the bundler. And if you interact with Moonwell, for instance, they have integrated the bundler as well to improve the UX of their users. And so here the user interact with the bundler, and the bundler can batch supply collect.
Or
and
even supply
also
multiple collaterals or something, like, I'm
yeah, you
assuming.
can
Yeah.
batch pretty much everything. Trigger reallocation, reallocate, trigger the board, and you can add all those actions into your cart, into the Morpho interface, and then trigger the execute button, and then all those actions will be executed at the same time. So thus reducing gas and making the Web3 experience much better.
So, what
All
have you
right.
seen so far in terms of like the competitiveness of the rates and like how efficient the market is
Right.
on Morpho?
So the nice thing is you can arbitrage rates much faster with bots. Also because market, or you have like many multiple markets, it can be much more volatile if you check the instant rate. But if you check the 1 day average rate, you'll see that there's a lot of arbitrage. So let's say there's a big borrow on one market, you'll see that because that could spike the rate on that specific market. But because there's multiple allocator to that market, and they may all have a bot that will reallocate the liquidity in it quite fast. If you check in the hour or even just the minutes or seconds after that big bore, you will see that creators are reallocating liquidity. So you have constant arbitrage at the market level, which is somehow interesting. And because also those markets are isolated, they kind of represent the true rate that you should have. Because if you take the previous example of lending pool, you can have very risky assets while the rate stays low, which does not represent really the risk that you're taking into on that protocol. So you're taking a lot of risk, but you're not rewarded by that. While if you go to Morpho, Pepe, USDC market, for instance, I bet that the rate will be much higher than on Rapid USDC.
Depending on
So
LTV, I guess.
depending on LTV, exactly.
That's held
Good,
constant, I guess, or
good
something.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what oracles do you use?
So Morpho is Oracle agnostic.
Mm.
So you can choose pretty much whatever Oracle that you want. So there are multiple hard-coded Oracle, but also Chainlink, Redstone, some custom ones for PT tokens, for instance. Um, yeah, API free PIF. I mean,
Yeah.
any oracle that exists, I think I've been you can find them
And
on
then
Morpho.
interest rate model, do you guys think a lot about that, or is it pretty
Yeah, so we
standard or
have quite simple model, but that is slightly different than others. So let me draw that and add a little bit of place here. Up. So the interest rates has up. So here is it's the rates, and here it's the utilization, so R and U. So you have the model that you can find pretty much on any lending pool, which is the curve model, where here, for instance, uh, up.
piecewise linear?
Yeah, up. So you have a kink. So our interest rate model tries to target a utilization of 90%. This is a utilization target. Up. If you are below that utilization, so you are here on the curve, right? If you're above, then you're on that curve. if you are at 100% utilization, so here you have a rate at target. Here, at 100%, the rate is 5 times the rate at target, or T. And at 0%, it's rate at target divided by 4. So let's say the rate at target here is 4%. If at some point the borrower borrows all the liquidity and then the utilization goes to 100%, then the instant rate will be 16% APY. And if it goes to 0, it will be 4 divided by 4, so 1%.
So this is the standard one used on most of the markets.
Sorry?
Is this the standard one used on most of the markets?
Yeah, at market inception, I think the utilization target is 4%. However, there's another mechanism that we call the adaptive curve. So let's say the market stays at 100% for 5 days, for instance. Then the curve will go up, and 5 days after, the curve will be there, and the new rate at target will be on the double of the previous rate at target. So if it was 4%, now it would be 8%. And if it stays at 100% utilization, then it will
Double again,
etc. And this way, the utilization, the rate at target, can adapt to new market conditions. So let's say the Fed increase the overall rate from, I don't know, I'm making figures here, but 2% to 5%. There's no real way to adapt the rate at target with just a curve, right? So here, like, if the utilizations is high for a long period of time, then the rate at target and will translate that, and the curve will adapt. The same way, if I'm under your target, then it will slowly decrease.
Oh, so that's if you're on average above you target for the 5 days? Or at max?
My 5 days example is at the extreme. So at 100% utilization, or within a 5-day period, it will double. If I'm at 0% after a 5-day period, it will be half by 2. That's the extreme. So it's the fastest it could increase, right? But if I'm, for instance, at 91%, so just 1% above your target, it won't increase as fast. It will increase, but really slowly, right? So the farther you are from utilization target, the faster the curve will move upward or downward.
It's similar to the ETH base fee, basically.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
So do you want to describe like the basic, or actually draw the basics? So like on the left, the lenders, and on the right, the borrowers.
Yeah.
And kind of like
so,
what an order looks like and what taking it looks like on the borrower side.
So let's say you have like markets V2.
Because it's basically peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
Roughly.
So you have markets V2 on which you do the settlement. There will be some sort of a mempool.
Or like an order book almost.
Yeah. On which you can have lenders making offers. You can also have more borrowers making offers.
Yeah.
But I expect mostly borrowers taking offers. Except those that are kind of like a very professional, I don't know, maybe hedge funds, etc., would be able to make offers. And then this is settled on chain, and they get the liquidity and up. They can make and take offers, of course.
And so when either party wants to recall, how does that work?
To
So
do
recall their, like basically if the lender wants to get back their, or is it for a duration,
right,
specified
so
duration?
it would be fixed rate, fixed term. So you need to wait for the term. But what I've not mentioned is there will be Vault V2 that will manage by curator, and those Vault V2 are very general in the sense that you can put Vault V2 can deploy capital into any yield strategy that you can think of, because what will be possible to add to a vault is an adapter, and that adapter then can plug to anything. So you can have an adapter for market V2, but you could also have an adapter for Morpho V1, which here up Morpho V1.
Okay, so it's basically like a yield aggregator.
Yeah, exactly. So a lender could deposit into Vault V2. The curator could deploy the capital into Vault V1 and Market V2, both at the same time. So on Market V2, it would be like fixed rates, fixed term offers that are matched. And on Morpho V1, they could deposit and withdraw the liquidity whenever they want. And so that the curator can play on both sides. And for the lender depositing into the Vol V2, it would be variable rate. While at the primitive level, it would be fixed rate.
But then there's not, it's potentially not instantaneous withdrawal from the lender perspective. There normally is.
Not market V2, but on Morpho V1, you can.
But not on the vault level. Most of the time on the vault level, but it could be the case that it's not. Because
yeah.
a vault
Could be
could only be lending out to market V2.
Yeah, it could be the case, but it's already the case for Vault version 1, right? If there's not enough liquidity on one specific market, you need to wait for someone else to repay.
Yeah.
So.
And then could the Vault V2 also lend to like other protocols, or is it just?
Could. Yeah, it could.
With the adapter that you said.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, here you have the Vault V1 adapter, the Market V2 adapter. We are going to release a Vault V1 adapter, which is basically your ERC4 626 adapter. So you could in theory deposit into any Vault V1 adapter. Into any ERC4 626 adapter. That could be reused by I don't know, any yield strategy providers like Yearn, or I don't know, they could reuse those kind of vault.
And then I guess we touched on this briefly offline, but so the liquidations in V1 look a lot like standard liquidations, like in Compound and Aave, right? How would liquidations work in?
That's a good question.
Market V2.
Still TBD.
TBD.
Yeah. So maybe we can put that off, but it would be some sort of like a bond system, and the right way to do liquidation and that kind of system is still under research.
Under research, okay.
We have a few paths that we are exploring, but it's just not anything clear yet.
Okay. Great. So, I mean, I feel like that's a good place to end an open question. So thank you so much for joining. Do you have any kind of like concluding thoughts on Morpho, like, future direction, things that you're excited about, just to finish it off?
Right. No, I just think that the V2 will enable much more fintechs and institutions to come on chain because it will basically solve many of their problems that are preventing them to come on chain. And I think it can move the needle into kind of bursting that bubble that of, I mean, the crypto space is still some sort of a self-referential bubble, where, right? And what we want to bring on chain is, as much as possible, real use cases, real usage from users that really need those kind of services, financial services. And I do think that V2 will solve that and enable much more adoption of DeFi to the greater spectrum of users.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Merlin.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.